the city gets from Homeland Security. They're our representative. They do community outreach, and they also do payroll. You kind of turn the page again. Today was the first day that we activated the heat action plan. That person's in charge of that, and that person's in charge of winter relief. So that person, that position does a lot of things. To lose that position would cripple the Office of Emergency Management, which is small, and it's taken a lot of cuts over the years. We started out with a budget when I got here of $20,000 operational funds. Now our funds are $7,500. So on the last page here, basically outlines the impacts, and it's just what I talked about. It's a very technical position. It takes 9 months to actually get somebody up and running in that position. And again, if I have to take somebody somewhere else and do that work, then I cripple our chances of getting grants and bringing them in.
Chief, can you, first of all, I want to commend you because you have given all of your staff, regardless of how long they've been with you, you've given them leadership responsibility. The young person that we're talking about now, the associate, does all of these things that a professional planner or OEM manager would take on. So, you know, to move that person into a position that's just an assistant would be pretty much diminishing her ability to perform at peak.
So we need to rethink this position, and I think that's a thing I need to talk with the fire chief about, because this is not really an office associate 4. It's like an emergency management specialist. So we need to kind of outline what that person would do. And I hired Nicole Queen for this, especially for this job, but she had to agree to come in on her days off on emergencies and do a lot of extra things that a office associate 4 would not do, the average. And you just can't bring an office associate 4 from Rec and Parks or planning and zoning and just have them work this position. It's a lot of commitment here.
So she's on call 24/7 like you are and like the deputy is?
She's on call once a month for a week, yes.
For a week?
Yeah, I'm the only one on call 24/7.
Oh, okay, because you're the director. What about these ballistic bulletproof vests? Aren't they in one of these cutouts?
Yeah, I think it is.
Are they not?
No, those are coming on the fund balance. They're funded.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it, other than we need to talk about cars.
Alderwoman Pendle-Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it safe to say that basically your theory is the same as the police chiefs when it comes to these grants? You're going to put someone in place, or make sure you have someone in place that can manage it efficiently and effectively, because the next time around when you apply for a grant, you're probably not going to get it if you cannot effectively manage it. Is that couching it correctly?
Not only that, if we get it and we don't manage it and we don't hit benchmarks, they'll take it from me. They'll take it from me.
Okay, thank you. Chief, Chief Baker, you had something else you wanted to say based on a question about 20 minutes ago?
About 20 minutes ago. Alderwoman Tierney, I just wanted to clarify something, that with the Finance Committee 220 and then the proposed additional cuts, it works out to about 2.5%, not 1%. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Teresa. Nearly there.
Amendment number 111 freezes a vacant maintenance worker 1 position in Public Works, and Amendment 112 cuts Public Works $22,460 in roadways.
He's coming. We don't even have to call on him. Good morning.
You for your morning shift?
What's so good about it?
That's what I was starting to wonder. David Gerald, Director of Public Works. So, you know, honestly, we have a pretty big budget ourselves in Public Works, and I feel like this is a pretty modest cut, so thank you for that. The contract reduction of the 7460 was one that we offered up, and I feel like we can live with that, so I won't even argue that. The other is a cut of a position, and we always hate to lose positions. In my business, you can't make up for those positions, so that's an amount of workload that person is doing that's just not going to get done. So I just want to make sure that you all, you know, compared to police and fire, this is going to sound very minor, but I just want you all to understand what these folks do. So, by way of background, what Chief Stokes was saying, that this is not the first time around for this. So back in 2010 when I got here, these guys are with the streetscape crew. So they're the ones that you see downtown and around town that are keeping the town looking decent, right? They're emptying the trash cans, they're sweeping, they're picking stuff up out of Eagle Alley when it gets in there. They move pianos at Market House when pianos need to be removed. They're sort of the labor force. They do everything that needs to be done, you know, that nobody else wants to do in the city. So when I got here, there were 13 of these positions.
This is your one.
Since then, we've had 4 cuts, and so this is an additional cut. So we'll have gone from 13 down to 8 positions to do these things. The other thing, you know, they do important things, but it's all behind the scene, and you know, nobody notices when that doesn't get done until citizens start saying, "Wow, the downtown's really looking grungy," and that's why I got after the first round of cuts back in 2010 when we cut several. People started saying, "Wow, the downtown, you know, under Mayor Moyer, things look really, really good." Josh Cohen had to cut several of these, and all of a sudden things started looking grungy, and people started commenting on that. So we can expect that to some degree. The other thing, which is what I talked about during the work session, is these are truly entry-level positions. So, you know, these are jobs that aren't hard to fill. We get lots and lots. We get probably 150 applications when we have one of these open. So what we normally do is we hire people to be temporary maintenance workers first. A lot of them are a second chance program because we really emphasize giving people a second chance. And those that are successful, we move into these positions, the permanent maintenance worker positions. And then that's a jumping off point to move up. They can get their commercial driver's license, and they can advance to equipment operator. And, you know, the sky's the limit at that point. Archie recently promoted, when Andy left, he recently promoted one of my former maintenance workers to be a pretty senior supervisor. He was a second chance employee. He came in through this sort of program, and he was great, and he is great, and now he's a level, I think, 14 in the city. So that's the other thing to keep in mind about these. These are truly entry-level positions for our residents to have an opportunity to come and work in the city. They're unskilled when they come to us, and then they learn skills, and they, you know, become operators, and they get promoted. So, you know, in my mind, they're pretty important, but compared to the discussions that we've just had about police and fire, you know, I understand where these kind of fit in the big scheme of things.
Alderman Finlayson.
Thank you, Mr. Gerald, and they're not unimportant in any scheme of things. We as a city are not known for hiring. You know, we don't talk about what our unemployment rate is, and we don't give people opportunities. And so this program, your department, is really the department where, as you said, you know, it's a second chance program. It's an opportunity for our residents who may not be able to go anywhere else to get a starter job, and then have the opportunity to move up in our organization or move on to others. So, you know, while it may be a little bit amount of money, sends a clear message about how we feel about our residents. So, thank you.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, he's busy. Can I say something?
So, Alderman
Yeah,
Tierney?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Gerald, I just want to echo what Alderwoman Finlayson said. I know you and I have joked sometimes that I think of Ward 1 as a job site, and the grounds crew, you know, you keeping it clean and responsive is not anything I take for granted. And I just think that your department is the model as far as, you know, as you said, you hire from, you know, the ground up, and you entice these guys to work harder, and you reward them, and I just can't, it shows, and I want to thank you for that. Anything I've asked you to do for my constituents, you have never refused. Thank you.
Alderman Pendle Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo the same thing, Mr. Gerald. Second Chance Program, you know, we had a job fair last month, and the gentleman from Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation and I got to talking, and he does resumes, and he helps folks with resumes. And we were talking about the low unemployment rate. But he said something that really resonated with me. If you're out of a job, the unemployment rate is 100%. Mm-hmm. It's not 4 or 3.5 or 5. It's 100. And this Second Chance program has really been a benefit to our city, to our government agencies, and to the residents here. Like Alderwoman Finlayson said, it sends a message. It sends a message that we're willing to take a second or third or maybe fourth chance on someone. But when that gentleman told me that, if you're out of a job, unemployment is 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alrighty.
So, Teresa, we're going to vote on this block first, right? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt O-1618 as amended on second reading? Yeah.
Wait a minute.
As a block, right?
It's the amendment.
Is there a
So
motion?
we're talking 96 through 112?
We're going to second.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Ayes have it. Okay. Is there a motion to adopt O-16-18 on third reader?
No.
Yes. May we make an amendment to O-1618 to amendment number 109? Can we strike, and I don't know what's the best way to phrase it, but what appears as the second line in the narrative, it starts with 1 firefighter, 1, 2 EMTP, and then it goes and an office associate, 3 position, 78234. I would make it a motion to amend to strike the office associate 3 position 78234 from the reduction.
May I suggest that you substitute what I'm handing out to you to what you're holding in your hand?
May I suggest that I take a look at that, Ms. Sutherland? Thank you. Thank you.
May I ask a point, just a question on, I'm just trying to get clarification. On 0618, as it was the annual budget sponsored by the Finance Committee, amendment number 86 was adopted as it relates to the City Attorney's Office. Here, this 0618, sponsored by Alderman Henson, Rodriguez, Savage, and Tierney, includes the same item at Amendment 98 with different numbers. As I understand it, Amendment 86 was already approved, so Amendment 98 would not be included in the 0618 from Henson, Rodriguez, Savage, and Tierney. Is that
No, that's
correct?
incorrect. If they vote in favor of Amendment 98, it supersedes Amendment 86 or whatever you said. The last amendment passed that strikes, that online, that makes a change to line 175 is the amendment that stands.
I would move to substitute the language in Amendment 109 with the latest version of Amendment 109 that was just handed out. That latest version of Amendment 109 has all the same provisions, save for it does not reduce the Office Associate 3 position from the Fire Department.
So moved. Second.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Teresa.
All those opposed? No one's opposed?
I would move amendment number 108. I'd be derelict in my duties if I, as public safety chair, if we did not, oh. 108 on the new version that Ms. Sutherland has given us. I'd be derelict. I couldn't go home and sleep tonight. I really couldn't.
What are you amending it to?
So
That,
what was just handed out is identical to the previous amendments they had, with the exception of the office associate in the fire department.
correct, but I would move to restore those.
Everything in 108?
Everything in 108, unless someone has something better. I said unless someone has anything better.
Alderman Arnett?
So I thought that there was a dialogue between Chief Baker and the city manager to change the 220, I can't remember what we
To
call
three,
it now.
okay, do you want an amendment? So let me
make it-
clarify the amendments you want, and we can go downstairs, or Nikki can go downstairs and do them. Are you looking for an amendment that doesn't take the cuts that are in Amendment 108 and instead increases attrition from 220 to 350? Is that the amendment you are seeking?
Chief, come on up.
That's what I would offer.
Okay?
Chief, come on up.
We've got a point of order, we've got to clarify the procedure right now. We've just amended this ordinance.
109.
Sorry, this ordinance. We've just amended 109. There's a motion on the floor. Has that been seconded? It needs to get seconded before we have discussion.
We're trying to figure out what we're going
Shakers.
to do first, but it'll be
Right.
second.
Right,
I want to get clarification on what we can do.
right. So rather than what you're,
Withdraw the motion.
Chief? I'm sorry, Alderman Arnett, please.
so I
continue.
was suggesting, rather than what you're proposing, that we do what the chief and Teresa were talking about.
Correct.
Which is to go from 220 to 350.
That is correct.
And make that the new 108.
Yes, that is correct.
So clarification, we're going to restore all of these positions that were cut out of the first motion and instead change the attrition number
I don't
from
know how you wanna
220 to
do it.
350,000.
I would say substitute.
Ma-
Can you word that?
Can I,
City manager.
don't care
yeah,
how we do
it.
okay.
Yeah, that's-
Here's what I'm going to suggest. You had a first block of amendments to vote on as a block. Ms. Henson has suggested taking the office associate not cutting the office associate in the fire department. So, and now you're talking about changing the police department cut that's been put on the table. May I suggest that you vote on these amendments not as a block, but that you vote on them one by one, and then if you want two different amendments, one that doesn't take the office associate, you put that amendment out and you vote on that, and then if Mr. Arnett would like to put if Amendment 108 is defeated, and Mr. Arnett would like to put in an amendment that takes 350 of attrition instead, we'll present that to you. But I would vote, you need to vote and decide whether there are 5 of you who aren't in favor of Amendment 108 before we turn around and put a replacement amendment out.
Yeah, point of order, didn't we already vote?
Pulled out one.
So they already voted in Amendment 96 through
Yes.
112.
Yes.
Yes.
Then they voted, I'm sorry, and then they voted for the different office associate.
Exactly.
Okay, so what we need to do is you need to give us a minute for Nikki to go downstairs and draft an amendment that would also amend line 238 of attachment A. And if it passes, it will supersede this amendment,
Correct.
Correct.
okay?
May I state that the positions there total $3,095, $484, and I know that they correlate to a particular reduction in the tax rate increase.
$3,000, what?
$395,484. And we have a certain amount of attrition that is already budgeted in, and then I think we are raising that number of attrition by how much?
130,000.
So it would, if we do that, not saying we should not, I'm not opining on that, I'm just saying if we do, then we have to understand that this number that's represented there at the bottom that says what the net effect on the proposed tax rate increase would be, would no longer be, if you're looking at the spreadsheet that says that, that would no longer be the same. I just want to make sure that's understood.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Sorry, thanks. So we would be increasing the amount by like 200,000 or,
Correct, unless
220 to 350.
so they're, all right. Just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
And the chief would be free to use that money as he sees fit? I mean, don't we need to restore a specific position if that's what it is for? I mean, that's approximately the cost of the lieutenant's position. It's a little bit more, but I want to make sure I totally understand. I might not be asking this question if it were 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but at 2:20 in the morning, I want to make absolutely sure I have it correct.
Mr. Payon, if there's an amendment that passes that simply strikes the 18,628,414 and subtracts out the attrition number, it will not be cutting or freezing any particular position. It will be giving the police chief an appropriation for salaries and benefits, and he will manage within his budget.
Thank you.
Is that correct, chief? Yes.
That's not a
Thank you.
that's not a correction.
Okay. So decrease the budget for, on line 238 of attachment A, police, strike 18,6.
Nikki will be up in a minute.
Okay, Nikki's gone.
getting it
Oh,
now.
oh, okay.
Because you still have the grant allocations and you still have
Okay,
the
fine.
revised projections,
Okay.
so we need to get the correct amendment.
All right. I want to wait and get this done.
what is the feasibility of increasing that attrition number by 195,484?
Instead of 150?
Correct.
195 what?
484.
I'd like some clarification.
That's 415,484. I think that's pushing it, but the chief could respond.
I'd like some clarification. I think it's my obligation to ask this question again to make sure that is this body's intent to cut the city attorney's office another, what, $13,800, or I mean, down from what was originally passed as a $99,100 budget, and now is it this body's intent to now decrease that to $85,489? If it is, I at least want to make sure that that is what this body's intending. Thank you.
Can you clarify that, please, for us? Teresa?
I believe that is the intent of the four who sponsored the amendment, and I would assume it was the intent of whoever voted in favor.
Thank you.
I didn't hear your answer, I'm sorry.
I said it's certainly the intent of the four who sponsored the amendment and anybody who voted in favor of it.
Thank you.
Question. Could you tell us, I guess, Ross, or how you added back that attrition, what it was based on? Did you just take the position and added it in? Where did you come up with that
Sure.
exact
All
number?
right, so it is my belief, and I believe I'm representing my constituents, that public safety is the number one job of the city. And I listened to the dialogue that was going on, and I like the flexibility of increasing the attrition more, particularly since with all the competition we've gotten going on, particularly with the county, I just don't think we're gonna come close to the 124. So I like the flexibility of increasing the attrition rate, taking the chance that we won't get fully hired, but giving the chief of police more flexibility on how he's going to adjust to the attrition. I know all the money is in police and fire. I mean, it's almost half of the budget. And if we're gonna be making any significant reduction, which I am in favor of reducing the amount of this tax rate increase, that's where a good chunk of change has to come from. And I'm not necessarily saying that it goes from 220 to 350 or 550 or whatever it is, but I'm just saying, rather than being as directive, do this attrition thing, and we know where that's gonna come from. It's gonna come from not filling vacancies and not be as specific about what's going on. But that's just me. I'm offering it, I haven't even made a motion, so, you know, it's really up to the group whether you're sympathetic to that approach as opposed to the 108 approach.
I think it gives the chief more flexibility and it doesn't pigeonhole the position, so, but, thank you.
Alderman Pound?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Alderman Arnett's motion or amendment. I'm not sure which, but
Notion, it's a notion right now.
look, we've talked about this 100 times that within certain parameters, we might all be better off if we could give department heads a great deal of flexibility with what they do. I mean, just give them money and say, hey, you run the department, and if they fail, then it's on them. I think that here, I just think it's a good idea. I want the sworn officer position restored, but you know, if he sees that that money ought to be used in another way, then okay. Thank you.
So Teresa, we're gonna wait for that to come up? Can we go through any
If
of
you wanna
this?
wait till Nikki brings that one up, we can move on to Amendment 115,
Okay.
which is the orange paper.
Yes.
And this is Alderwoman Pindell Charles's proposed amendment to fund 2.5 community ambassadors for $47,925.
Do we have a motion? Alderman?
I don't know if I need to reiterate what I've already said in work session. I will say this, when we break this down, and we're talking about the households that we're assisting in the community, and we're talking about 12% of the households, which means public housing and subsidized housing, it breaks down to $38.38 per household for the year and 11 cents per day per household for the year. You heard Ms. Tippy, Ms. Odessa, and Ms. Rita this last evening. I sent you all an email several times, the breakdown of the public housing and subsidized housing per ward. I don't know what else I can say. Does anyone have any questions before we vote?
Need a second? We need a second?
I mean, I didn't think we,
Need a
I didn't
second?
hear the,
You-
I didn't hear the
You put
motion,
the,
I'm sorry.
you're the motion, right?
I'm the motion.
Yeah.
I made the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favour say aye? No discussion, sorry.
I mean, if
Discussion?
you had questions of me more than what I've already given you.
Well, I do want to mention, if you hadn't read the newspaper, the pop-up summer camps is an example of that type of work, and I know that we spent a lot of time, you know, making sure that we could include that for balance. Thank you, Rhonda, for bringing it up at the work session.
Thank you. Yes.
Alderman
Well,
Arnett?
My comment would be, when this is a Department of Education program, they have infinite resources. When you look at this amount of money versus what we just did to our Office of Law, I'm sorry. I want to take care of our Office of Law first. Let's get the Department of Education to do their job and hire these people and have them do the job. I know Ms. Tippie, I know the work they're doing, but I think that we need to go to the Department of Education and get them to take care of those, that because.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, Alderman Arnett, but I will tell you this, and I'll be perfectly honest and blunt. I had to literally talk Miss Tippie off the edge. She was ready to quit. And if we don't fund these positions, she will quit. Because we won't have any community ambassadors at all. I'm just letting you know. What you're saying is correct, but all I'm saying is at this point, we need these people. And they've committed, their families, they've been working about a month. And to now tell them they don't have these jobs anymore, I think is, just like I said a few minutes ago, I hope everybody's listening to me. I hope everybody is listening to me. I know it's late. I hope everyone is listening to me.
Okay, teacher, you got it.
Okay, but we're not going to have any, period. We're not going to have any, period.
Okay.
And I'm agreeing. It should be the school system, but right now we need them. And to tell people who've been working for a month you no longer have a job, I think is horrible. For them, unemployment is 100%. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Pion?
do I understand this correctly, Ms. Sutherland, this involves a $2,075 increase in the budget overall? I mean, what are we,
You've already adopted amendments that increase at 20 for the grant allocation and decrease at 70 for contract services. When you combine those two cuts that you've already taken, or the increase that you've already given, and add the community ambassadors, the net effect from the mayor's proposed budget is a decrease of $2,075.
That's all we're talking about here, $2,075 total?
From the mayor's proposed budget, yes. From
Thank
the
you.
amendments you have already voted for, it is an increase of $47,925.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favour of the amendment 115, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Let's have it. Okay, do you want to go back to that, Teresa? Go.
Okay, let's go to Amendment 116 that Nikki just handed out.
What is?
And this amendment takes $350 of attrition in the police department, $22,600 to reflect the grant corrections, and $167,795 increase for the salary projections. So it's a net decrease in the police department of $204,805. So it gives you your $350 of attrition, Mr. Arnett.
Okay. Ross? It's your amendment?
Oh, well, we're talking, yes, I move this amendment. Let's see if it gets a second.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second for Ross's amendment. Any discussion?
Point of order. What are we voting on?
This one that just got handed to us
Okay.
here. So, decrease the budget for salaries and benefits in the police department by $2,004,805, a reduction of $350,000 for attrition, and $22,600 to reflect revised grant allocations offset by an increase of $167,795 to reflect revised projections.
That's the attrition thing.
That was Ross's suggestion, which seems like a good one to me, has my support, so, Alderman Arnett. No, sorry, Savage.
I don't support this, because I do feel like we need to be freezing some of the positions. This is just, this would result only in, well, about $265,000 less of a reduction. So what is that, about a third of a cent, half a cent? You know, we went back and we gave one of the firefighter positions because they made a good case. They were honest and frank, but the police department just essentially didn't want to pick, right? They didn't want to choose, and I don't think we should be rewarding them by not doing any cuts. But then again, we listened to the fire department when they were honest, and we did honor that. I just don't think this is being fair.
Okay, we've got a second on that, right? Okay. So Alderman Arnett's motion has a second. All those in favour of Alderman Arnett's motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
No.
No.
Ayes have it. No. Nice. Teresa?
Okay, the next one is on kind of a cream colored sheet, and it's amendments proposed by Alderman Savage. It says Amendment 116 at the top. We need to change the numbers. It should be 117 and 118.
What colour are we on?
It's kind of a cream colored paper. Yes, it should be 117 and 118.
So I move to adopt both amendments. What are they now? 116, 117,
117 and 118.
117 and 118.
Second.
I've got 116 and 117.
You need to renumber it to 117 and 118, please.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a
There was.
second?
Are we
Which one
voting
are
on
we
the
doing?
block?
Both of them.
17, or doing both?
We're voting on the whole
Everyone got
thing?
this piece of paper? Everyone's got this?
Yeah. I'm sharing Brett's screen.
So, Alderman Savage?
Yeah, so just to explain this, Amendment 117, essentially, so because the requested enhancements for the marina trash skimmer and the no discharge zone were removed, rejected by the Finance Committee, this essentially reinstates them, but it takes the money from the Watershed Restoration Fund, because both those efforts are related and important in terms of cleaning up our waterways. So this will not have an effect on the bottom line, because it is coming out of this dedicated fund. And so that's the First Amendment. The Second Amendment, 118,
117?
no, 118 is changed.
It's now 118.
This one, let's see. So this one would authorize $1,000 for certification, and it's $500 for the arborist, the cedar arborist, to maintain his certification, which is a requirement of his job, and for the city to get certification for a floodplain manager, which I believe is also a requirement of the code.
For what?
A floodplain manager certification.
Oh.
And it would also reinstate was $1,000 for the what's called the STAR community certification. And what the certification allows is it's kind of like a city sustainability certification, but this organization offers resources such as training, model laws. It'll help give them other resources to kind of make these initiatives and make these efforts. So it's really a good way to for only $1,200, this small department can get a lot out of that. And I believe that is all that's contained within these. Yeah.
Okay, Alderman Pound?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The marina trash skimmer, I think I know what it is. What's the effectiveness of that? I mean, I've been told by people in years past that doing something like they have in the Inner Harbor in Baltimore, they've got the giant wheel that skims trash off the surface, and I know that's not what you're talking about here, but I've always been told that that really isn't the problem here in Annapolis, and that it would be kind of a waste. Now, this is something on a much smaller scale. Why is this any better? And how effective is it really at picking up trash and cleaning up wherever we want to put it?
Well, so you're right, it would be much smaller and a different technology than the Baltimore. This would be a passive technology, no electricity. It's a large container, I think about the size of a dumpster, that would sit in the water and just passively collect. It would need to be emptied out, by the maintenance crews, Public Works. So there's no cost associated with it besides the maintenance. But the importance is just, I'm sure we're not going to get as much trash as Baltimore for sure, but it will collect whatever debris does end up in the city dock, and overall just make the city dock area, the waterways, much more appealing, cleaner, but also it's related to our MS4 permit that we have with MDE, and one of those requirements is that we do take efforts to reduce the amount of trash and debris that are in our waterways. I don't know if the director of the office might like to say anything else about that I left out.
We're picking on everybody else. You might as well come on up and take yours.
Nothing.
There we go. Jackie Gild, Office of Environmental Policy. The other thing I'd add to the MS4 requirement is that we do public outreach and education as part of our MS4 requirements, and the skimmer would be part of that, because we would put signage with it, and also use it as a means to encourage people to keep trash out of the water. So that's the only thing I'd add to that.
Alderman Pindell, Charles?
Yes, what is the fiscal impact on 117 and 118?
So Amendment 118 is going to use $40,000 of the Watershed Restoration Fund.
117.
What did I say? I'm sorry.
118, that's okay.
117 uses $40,000 of the Watershed Restoration Fund. And I have to raise, because my finance director is the one who's going to have to cut the check, that I am not certain and would ask for the city attorney's advice on whether this is a permissible use of the Watershed Fund money. The code says it shall be used for land acquisition, study, engineering, design, purchase, construction, expansion, repair, maintenance, landscaping, and inspection of public stormwater management systems. So I'm not certain that a trash skimmer and no discharge zone outreach, while it seems to be consistent with watershed restoration, I'm not sure it meets our code definition. So if you approve this amendment, I would then, before we spent this money, ask our city attorney whether it was a permissible use.
Mr. City Attorney?
The 20,000 outreach materials, I'm just looking at that first. And yeah, I mean, 17.10.180 talks about the stormwater utility fund. It says a stormwater utility fund shall be established, and the money therein shall be used by the city for land acquisition, and in a parenthesis, including easements and rights of way, and a paren, comma, and the study, engineering, design, purchase, construction, expansion, repair, maintenance, landscaping, and inspection of public stormwater management systems. I would start off again on the outreach materials. I don't see how that fits into the definition under 17.10.180. I don't know what function the other item performs, the skimmer. Does it maintain or repair a stormwater management system? If it does not, then it also would not be included under the stormwater utility fund. That would be my thought.
Alderman Savage?
Thank you. So, I think out of both of them, the trash skimmer, I would argue, would more closely adhere to the language, because the trash skimmer really is acting as a stormwater management device. It's managing stormwater that washes into the city dock and carries along with the trash. And so the intention, broadly speaking, of stormwater management in general is to remove trash and debris, to remove nutrients, to remove sediment from our waterways. And so this trash skimmer would directly remove trash and debris from the waterways. In terms of the no discharge zone, I think that meets the intention of the fund, in the sense that the whole purpose of it is to remove nutrients from the waterway. If there are tweaks that need to be made to authorize the funds for the no discharge zone, then the Environmental Matters Committee can certainly do that down the road. But I think, but I don't think that prohibits us from passing these amendments today.
Alderman Arnett?
I guess, speaking to the no discharge zone, which I do favor, we don't have one yet. So it seems a little premature to be budgeting this money. And if I recall the discussion about the trash collector, you need more than one. I thought at one point we were saying we need like 20 of them. You have to put them all over the place because they are passive. So I had always understood this first one to be kind of a test or a prototype. And I can remember Mr. Murphy testifying that it is still a somewhat infant technology. So I'm wondering if it's really ready for prime time. And I think I can even pull out of my bags here the mock-up of the one that we saw. So if it's one of 20, that's different than if it's just one. So, you know, I think that's something that we need to know more. But I'm really pressed to support this, and I'll use law as the example when we're eating our own in our departments. So and I'm on the committee, but I guess I have some reservation. This is why I voted for cutting them when we were on the Finance Committee. So I understand your desire to restore it, but I'm not sure I can be very wholeheartedly behind either one of these.
Alderman Savage?
I hear you, but there's no fiscal impact.
Well, I think that's up to debate.
Well, no, there's nothing prohibiting us from passing today. We may need to tweak the Watershed Restoration Fund language. The intention of that fund is to restore our waterways, and the intention of both of these amendments and technologies is to improve our waterways. The no discharge, we don't have the no discharge zone program in place. We are in the process of doing a joint application with the county to the EPA to have our waterways designated as no discharge zones. As a part of that application, the EPA considers how much money we put forth. We have to show that we're going to be backing this up with an education program and an enforcement program. But we are actually emphasizing education over enforcement. And we've been working with, Ms. Giles has been working with Beth Bellis in the Harbor Master's office. It will be a joint effort, but we need to be putting forward money to show that we're serious to the EPA. if we don't, that's gonna jeopardize not just our application, but the county's application too. And since this money is free at no cost, there's no reason, and you're on the Environmental Matters Committee, we can get that changed pretty quickly, without any problems. So I really encourage you to support these. The trash skimmer technology, Mr. Murphy was conflating two technologies. He had one he was looking at about the size of garbage pails that you have to hook up to to electricity, and you do place those all over the place. You know, I believe Ms. Scott decided not to go with that technology. It requires electricity, they weren't even produced at the time, and instead she went and recommended this skimmer, which is used elsewhere. And you do have to put it in a corner where the wind goes, but you'll notice the trash usually does collect in one corner downtown on City Dock.
I would add, Alderman Arnett, that we went with the passive one because it was less maintenance, because it would be a prototype to see how much trash it actually collected, but they do work. It works just like a pool skimmer. It's like a giant pool skimmer. It's how it works. So it collects it within, but it's a dumpster sized. It would be ideal to do that. I don't think you need 20, not in the size of our harbor, but you should, one, I think, is prudent to go with in the beginning to see how much is actually collecting. Then we can determine how many more we would actually need.
I leave it up to this body to determine whether the functionality of that which is being sought and appears to have a fiscal impact. It says to increase the operating budget for watershed restoration fund by $40,000, comprising $20,000 for marina trash skimmer and $20,000 for no discharge zone outreach and education. If that is to be implemented through the stormwater utility fund, this body would need to make the determination that, in fact, that is maintenance of public stormwater management systems. And I think that is a question. I'm not sure what the intent of the word maintenance is there. It's not maintaining directly the stormwater management system. It might perform some function in skimming trash from stormwater. So I leave that up to this body to determine whether they believe that that's an appropriate use of the stormwater utility fund.
Alderman Henson.
May I inquire of the city attorney, is there an ability to do as Alderman Savage has suggested, an ex post facto appropriation, where if the funds are, perhaps this is a question for the city manager as well, if the funds are appropriated and then the code is amended, and that's presumptuous, but if the code were amended to expressly state that it could be used for those purposes, is that permissible or is that impermissible?
Ordinarily, ex post facto laws are not permissible as a general matter. So I would have to say, generally speaking, the way the law is presently stated, it would not be permissible.
Watershed Enterprise Fund's operating budget. It's not the general fund. No, sir. It's out of the watershed fund.
Alderman Savage.
You know, I think we should get Ms. Giles' opinion on this too, because I think, no offense, but I don't think we should leave this in the hands of the law office. You know, I am a professional stormwater management engineer, and I think the question comes down to what's stormwater management. In many ways, our city dock is our stormwater management. We have no management down there. It's our pipes. The water hits the pipes, it goes right into our city dock, right? City dock is functioning as our stormwater management device, our public stormwater management device. So if this trash collection device will operate in our public stormwater management facility, city dock, and collect trash. This no discharge zone will prevent nutrients from being deposited in our public stormwater management device, the city dock. So in that way, I would say there's a sufficient argument to be made that this is sufficient use of the Watershed Restoration Fund.
Ms. Giles?
From a strict reading of the ordinance, I concur with the city attorney that it's hard to make that connection. However, the way that Alderman Savage has described it, it's true. That is, it's not a system like our typical system we would see, or a swale or something naturally engineered, but that's all we have. And so what he's saying is that basically everything runs downhill, collects, and dumps into city dock. So that's as rudimentary and primitive as that is, that's a stormwater management system of a type, even though it's not really doing anything actively to manage except acting as a mixing zone at this point, which is not ideal. And I just wanted to add, as far as the no discharge zone, that is something that we can take TMDL credit for, EPA's determined, which is really important in meeting our TMDL goals as well. As far as stormwater goes, suburban and urban runoff is the largest growing source of pollution to the bay and to all our waterways, and that's a prime example of stormwater entering right into our harbor area. So we just have to reconcile this with a strict reading of the city code, which I concur with the city attorney, but this really is what our stormwater management system is for the harbor at this point. That's not saying very much for what our stormwater management system is, but the CBIN would help do some active stormwater management in the harbor.
And I just also want to point out it, 1710-180E, it says Public Works is responsible for maintenance, repair, and retrofit of stormwater facilities that lie in the public right-of-way, and these funds shall be used to this effect. So that, again, it points to the fact that we're talking about the stormwater management system or facility that is to be maintained, and I leave it to the council to make that determination.
You've got to factor in, so
whether it applies. Thank you, Alderman.
Professionally, stormwater management devices, look at the county, right? They have the watershed protection. They do stream restorations, and that's what this fund is intended to fund, stream restoration, right? We're using our streams as a stormwater management device. We put in step pools to hold the water, to allow it to infiltrate. The stream itself is a stormwater management device that is maintained, paid for by our fund and by the county's fund. What's the difference between city dock, waterway, and a stream? Not much, right? They're both carrying water through the system, and we're trying to use this system to treat our stormwater because we don't have any treatment left upstream. So in that regard, I would say this completely meets the definition of a stormwater management device.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Thank you. And I completely agree with Alderman Savage, and I would just like to remind the body that not only is Alderman Savage an expert in this area, but Director Guile is also an attorney who's advocating for this and thinks it's okay. And on top of that, this isn't even tied to the tax increase.
With all due respect, I don't believe she said, she gave you a legal opinion that she thinks this is okay. I'm not going to quibble over whether this body will decide that it's appropriate to proceed in this manner. I'm simply telling you that when reading the statute, how the word maintenance applies to the stormwater management system or facility, not necessarily to the water that's in it.
Alderman Rodriguez? No?
I have something to say.
Okay, Alderman Bendel,
Thank
Charles,
you.
and let's vote on this thing.
You know, I'm really having some difficulty as a fellow barrister, and I think we're crossing the line with Mr. Melnick. I think it's disrespectful. We hired him to be our city attorney. I have no disrespect for Ms. Gould. She's a fellow barrister as well. But this is the gentleman that we paid to do this job. And we could ask 5 attorneys the same question, and oftentimes we're going to come up with different answers. But I think we've crossed the line with being disrespectful. That's all I got to say.
If I may say, to respond to you, that I am opining clearly in my position as Director of Office of Environmental Policy, and as I said, I defer to the city attorney on legal matters. I was not hired to be an attorney, just happen to have that knowledge in my head, but I am not rendering a legal opinion here. I'm only speaking about what I know from my environmental experience. My 30-plus years as an environmental attorney also picked up a lot of engineering and site design experience as well. So I'm speaking to Alderman Savage's characterization of the harbor, much akin to a stream in this respect. Unfortunately, the ordinance is written the way it is written, but I think you can also make a reasonable interpretation that when they meant stream, they meant water bodies, rivers, harbors, whatever else it could be. Perhaps we need to fix the ordinance so that it more clearly reflects what we have here in our harbor.
And I've simply asked the council to consider this and measure it and determine what they want to say is the intent of the language of the statute.
And at this point, we're talking about an issue concerning maybe if it's a permissible use or not, and whether this legislation is premature. So there are two issues on the table.
I think the vote will determine that, probably, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
point of order, could we stop the
Alderman Turner?
discussion?
Yeah?
Could we
Yep,
stop
sure.
the discussion?
And just for, I like it,
that
but you pulled the funding out of, on these amendments and found another source of funding for the environmental office. Okay, great. Okay, so we have a second on this. We're going to vote on them as a block. O dash.
Wait,
No? No, just these two as a block.
okay.
No?
Ms. Pindell Charles asked for the fiscal impact of both of them. We've only discussed one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the fiscal impact of Amendment 118 is it will supersede the amendment that you already passed in the Office of Environmental Policy that decreased tree maintenance by $3,000, so that won't happen. Decrease the tree canopy by $26,000, that won't happen. The C-bins in the no discharge zone, if the one above doesn't pass, then those would be funded in the operating budget. A $1,200 increase for $1,700 increase for certifications, $1,000 more for training, and $500 for supplies. So that is over what you already cut. You're going back up either $32,200 or $62,200.
The intention was not to refund the enhancement for the forest maintenance money. The intention was simply to fund $1,000 worth of certification so they can maintain their professional certification, and then to get another $1,000 for the STAR certification with a total financial impact of $2,000. The forestation money is, I was not going to touch. I was just going to allow that $3,000 cut in the previous block.
So you are only trying to increase it $2,000 over the previous cut?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, let's correct Amendment 118 to say on line 211, strike 94,200 and insert 37050. And that will have everything you previously did will stand, and it will increase it by 2,000 over what you previously did.
Give us that line again, sorry.
On line 211 of attachment A, strike 94,200 and insert 37050.
050, okay. Got that? Okay, now can we vote on the two of them together or not?
So that means we're going down from 94,000 to 37,500?
37050. Right now, you are already down to 35050.
Question? So does that mean we are reducing even more than what we approved in the previous amendment?
No, you are adding 2,000.
Adding, right.
You are,
Okay, so we are adding.
you're adding 2,000.
Okay.
So, Teresa?
Yes?
can we vote on the two of them together?
Sure.
Okay. So we have a second for the amendments, as we've just said, for Amendment 117 and 118. All those in favour say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
No.
I was an aye.
Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
No.
Alderman Finlayson. Alderman Rodriguez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Henson.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett. Alderwoman Tierney.
I'm gonna abstain. It's too many unknowns, I think.
Alderman Payne.
Aye.
Alderman Pendle Charles.
No.
The motion carries.
Motion carries. Right, how are we looking now?
Okay, you got one more amendment,
Oh, no.
Yep.
the tax rate. You gotta set the tax rate. We're gonna tell you what it is.
Don't we have this still? Too? No. Oh.
And they will be happy because then they can.
They should do it on the side.
Okay. Okay, so the amendment is gonna be number 119. And on page 1, line 44 of the ordinance, you're going to strike 0.779 and insert 0.738. 0.738. And then on page 2, line 2, you're going to strike 0.779 and insert 0.738. It is a 4.1 cent decrease over the proposed 13-cent increase. So it gets you to 8.9. 8.9.
The increase is 8.8.
8.9.
Okay.
So what is this decrease the tax rate? Zero? Was anything going that way?
0.041.
Point.
Yeah. Right here. That's right, the difference in that.
Okay.
What is that?
What number amendment is that?
119.
119.
Oh, to decrease it to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The description should be to decrease the tax rate to 0.738.
Zero.
I gave you the wrong thing, but it is a 4.1 cent reduction.
0.738
Yes.
for $100. No.
From the
So I'm going to read Amendment 119 again. So page 1, line 44 of the ordinance, strike 0.1779 and insert 0.738. Is that right?
Yes.
Page 2, line 2 of the ordinance, strike 0.1779 and insert 0.738 to decrease the tax rate to 0.738 per $100 of assessment. No? No.
It might be that Australian accent.
Might
Both of
be
those
3 o'clock in the morning.
0.779s didn't come across to me as being, yeah, you said 179.
It's 779.
Okay, sorry, 7.
No, he misread his numbers, 0.779.
Sorry.
Good news is she's got it written down. So, someone needs to move that.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Have a second? Okay. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
All right, the ayes have it.
Now you have to pass the budget as amended.
Yes, amendment on second reading. Need a motion to amend 016 on second reading. You are going to do. And then we're gonna do a roll call.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt O-16-18 as amended on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Alderman Annette?
So, Mr. Mayor, when you invited the Finance Committee meeting into your office, which we certainly appreciated, and told us that the tax rate may have to go up 10 or 13 cents, I told you at that time that I could not support balancing the budget on tax rate increase only. And I still could not support increasing the budget. Last year I voted against the budget because we didn't do anything to address the structural deficit. This year I'll vote against it because the only thing we did was raise taxes. Even though we reduced the rate of increase, we're still only raising taxes, and I just don't think that's the right way to do business, so I cannot support this operating budget.
So we have a second on that amended budget, right?
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Alderwoman Finlayson?
Thank you. Very disappointing evening. Actually, I've seen the writing on the wall. We all have. Alderman Arnett mentioned balancing the budget on the backs of, I'm going to add absent employees, and our support system. We have managed to put things before people, and we have managed to put quality people and service as second or third. So while we're increasing taxes, and it's going to happen, it is going to greatly impact the quality of services that we provide. I only hope that there isn't some catastrophic, I can't even talk at 8 a.m., catastrophic incident that brings to light the irresponsibility of what it is we're going to do. So I would hope that we keep in mind to really perform the work in our city and services.
Alderman Payne?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am not going to be able to support the budget either for very different reasons from the ones I heard from my colleague from Ward 4. I think I agree with Alderman Arnett that I find it difficult to support a budget that is relying entirely on tax increases to balance itself out. While I don't want to minimize the contributions that my 4 newer colleagues have made in moving heaven and earth to get the tax rate down to what it is, because I think you really did. I would not have predicted you'd be successful in doing this. I don't like the way you went about doing it, and I certainly could have added, I think, quite a bit had I known. I didn't even know you guys were meeting until Friday afternoon, or whenever I got something from Alderwoman Tierney. At least my other 2 colleagues knew something was going on. I did not. I could have sent word in through somebody else of my ideas about cutting taxes, and I think we would have been perhaps successful in doing some things differently and perhaps cutting even more, but be that as it may, we all learn as we go along, and I appreciate that. And I don't want to minimize your efforts. I think your heart was absolutely in the right place in doing what you did. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that you could put all the lipstick you want on this thing, but the pig doesn't look all that much different to me at this point. And you may have moved heaven and earth, but not enough to make me support this. I'd like to thank, having said that, I want to thank everybody involved in bringing this together. I think that we have a very serious problem with the manner in which we go about doing our budget. I think had any of us known that this, what I consider to be, well, I'm not going to say it's a catastrophic increase, but the size of this increase was anywhere near what it was, I think maybe other actions might have been taken during the last year. Having said that, I am chairing the audit committee, and I don't plan on letting this happen again. We're going to change things with any luck at all, and in terms of, I mean, I don't know how the tax rate will be affected. I don't know what's going to happen in the next year, but the way we go about drawing up a budget is just wrong, and it's been wrong for a long time. We should have corrected it by now. I've been here. I'm as guilty as anybody else in not bringing about the change. This time, however, there are a couple of us who are in a position to make a change, and I, for one, plan on doing that. But thank you, everyone, for your efforts. This was, I think, closer to a Herculean effort than I'm used to seeing, for sure, in putting the budget together, even if I strongly disagree with the amount and the contents. But that's all I have to say. It's 3:15.
Alderman Tierney?
Just very briefly, I just wanted to sort of respond to my colleague Alderman Paone about the way we do the budget and all. And I mean, since I read the financial transition report, at the time we didn't have Teresa, and Rich Melnick was part of that team. Things are looking up, and I think that with her focus on realigning the budget and putting it in a whole new format, I don't think we'll go through this misery again. I'm really hopeful, and already we've implemented some of the recommendations in the transition report, and so things just will have to get better, and I look forward to that.
So I think it was a tremendous effort by everybody in a short space of time. We have to be mindful of the short space of time that this all happened in. Teresa, could you just clarify, if we did not do a tax increase this year, would we have to do a tax increase next year?
If you didn't do a tax increase this year, yes. Never mind, yes. And if you do not pass a budget and adopt a tax increase before July 1st, I will lock the doors at midnight on June 30th. You must adopt a budget and set the tax rate before July 1st.
So we have, so there's a motion to adopt 016 as amended. 1 second, reader. We have a second. All those in favour say aye.
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 All those against?
No.
No.
The ayes have it. Okay. There's a motion to adopt 0-16-18 on third reader.
So moved.
Second. Second, okay. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, a roll call, I apologise, it's late. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Buckley.
Yes.
No.
Alderman Finlayson.
Yes.
Alderman Rodriguez. Alderman Henson.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
No.
Alderman Tierney.
Aye.
Alderman Paone.
No.
Alderman Pennell Charles. Aye. The budget passed. All right. Don't leave, we have one more piece. One more piece.
Hiss? Huh? Okay. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yep, got it. The next item on the agenda is legislative actions on first readers, beginning with Resolution R-30-18, hiring freeze, for the purpose of imposing a hiring freeze on non-critical positions in the city of Annapolis, effective upon the adoption of this resolution through June 30, 2019.
Is there a motion to adopt this on first reader?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it, so it's just on first reader. Mr. City Attorney? Oh, and we need to refer that to the Finance Committee. All right. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The agenda has been completed, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anything else for good order?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
You can't have John Astle for another year. It would be against city law
I think
for it to be a lobbyist.
January, I heard, January. Yeah.
No, he can't work for the city for a year after he leaves the government.
I want to
This-
thank everyone that came out and stayed out tonight. Thank you. We really value you guys. Thank you so much.
Mr.
Alderman
Mayor.
Bowen.
Reluctantly at 3:21, and I think we broke our record from 8 years ago of 3:20. I would move that we adjourn.
And that was on the City Dock Master Plan, right?
Yep.
I should remember because I was the only one who voted against it, but I would move that we adjourn.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We're going to have a group hug now,
Do
okay?
do we need a second? Don't we need to vote on adjourning?
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
No.